There's an established 5-step language translation process that professional translators follow, but most people don't know about. And if this process isn't followed, which it often isn't, the translations produced are simply unlikely to be of professional standard. In this video, I'm going to quickly explain this process and why things come unstuck when it's not followed. Hi, I'm Dennis Brown, and our company has been providing translation and interpreting services to clients across many business sectors for over 20 years. I'll dive right into these 5 steps in just a moment, but first, a quick question. What mental processing do you think translators have to do to translate a document? Well, for each phrase or section of text they translate, they need to firstly read and understand the source text, then keeping the meaning or message of that text in mind, select the most appropriate vocabulary in the target language, and using the grammatical structure of the target language, compose that meaning or message in the target language, making sure the new text is worded in a natural way. Now, this turns out to be a lot for the human brain to handle all at once. It's difficult to both correctly convey all the meaning and phrase it in natural sounding language all in one go. Basically, you pretty much have to concentrate on one aspect more than the other. Now, if you concentrate more on correctly conveying all the meaning, your target language wording can often be a bit stilted and unnatural. And if you concentrate more on creating excellent wording, it's easy to miss a nuance or component of the message in your translation. Either way, it's a challenging task where mistakes can quite easily be made. That's why a sound translation process is needed and is rigorously followed by professional translators. So here is that best practice 5-step translation process. Step 1. Overview. The first step is simply to scope out the text to be translated, its subject matter, content, length, style, how technical it is, etc. The translator will typically read or skim read parts of the text to get a feel for the content. They may note key concepts or terminology they will need to research and will decide if any preliminary background reading is needed. Step 2. The initial translation. In this step, the translator will systematically work through the document, translating it in chunks of 5 to 10 words at a time. Now, choosing the appropriate length of individual text segments to deal with is important. Ideally, each segment will be a discrete and complete unit of meaning, but it also has to be short enough to be retained in short-term memory, and anything over about 10 words can be a struggle. Of course, sentences are frequently longer than this, so they'll typically be split into shorter chunks. Now, working with segments that are too short or not discrete units of meaning tends to produce an unnatural and potentially confusing translation, whereas chunks that are too long to easily remember run the risk of some meaning being missed in the translation. Step 3. Accuracy check. What we've got this far is just a draft translation, which the translator will now methodically work through, comparing it chunk by chunk to the original text. The primary goal here is to confirm no content has been missed and no meaning misinterpreted. And most translators will also look out for and improve any slightly unnatural or inelegant wording in this step. Step 4. Clear the mind. This step is dead simple. Put the translation aside and take a break. Ideally, this should be for a few hours or overnight. The idea is purely to clear the mind, so the important 5th and final step is more effective. Step 5. Final polishing. In this final step, the translator rereads the translation without reference to the source document, looking solely at quality of expression. They'll make final edits to further refine and polish the translation. Now, the obvious caution is that not all translators follow this process. Professional translators learn this methodology in their tertiary translation studies programs. Because it's drilled into them and they understand the need for it, they know not to take shortcuts and should automatically follow it. For the professional translator, this is just what you do, it's just the way translations are done. But the same can't be said of untrained translators. Basically, without that formal translation training, it's unlikely someone would instinctively adopt all of these steps, or even appreciate the need for them. It's no surprise then that untrained translators frequently use processes that not only aren't best practice, but also aren't sufficiently robust and reliable enough to overcome the inherent difficulties in the translation process. And sadly, they are often blissfully unaware of the shortcomings in their translation processes and therefore the work they deliver. So why are each of these steps important? As we've said, after the first attempt, a translation will often have some slightly unnatural wording, and some aspects of meaning may also have been missed. So steps 3 and 5 are vital to ensure all source text meaning has been carried over into the translation and nothing has been missed, and then to tidy up the wording so it reads naturally and well in the target language. The break in step 4 is sometimes omitted for shorter texts and when there is time pressure, but generally makes for a much more effective final review. That's because the initial translation and checking processes in steps 2 and 3 both require considerable focus on the source text. And after an extended period of intense concentration, this lingering focus can make it difficult for the translator to adjust and totally block out the source text to then assess the quality of their writing solely on its own merits. A break clears the mind and lets the translator come back to the translation fresh and alert and better able to take a new and critical look at how clear and natural the translation wording is. So what effect does urgency and rushing have on translation quality? If the project deadline is such that there isn't enough time to complete all these steps, something obviously has to give. And that something is inevitably the quality control steps 3 to 5. The translator will be forced to rush or even worse omit the accuracy check and or the final polishing of wording. The inevitable result of that is that the quality of the translation will suffer. Specifically, it'll be much more likely to contain errors or inaccuracies and may also have some parts where the wording isn't particularly clear, natural or elegant. That's why we strongly recommend clients allow sufficient time in a project for all 5 steps in the translation process to be carried out. It's just good risk management. The translation you'll get will be much more likely to be fit for purpose. That's it. Now check out our blog article for further detail and for our PDF summary of this 5-step process. And you might also like our many other articles of practical use to business clients. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing to our YouTube channel. And of course we have other videos you might like as well. Thanks for watching.